appreciate the moment. So, on October 17, 2017, I discovered that my wife had been having a 6-month-long affair with her boss. On the 17th, I thought it was just an emotional affair, but on the night of October 20th, we got into a huge argument and she didn't come home that night. This was the first time anything like that had ever happened. She lied to me and told me that she just needed to get away and that she slept in her car in a park all night. On October 24th, she confessed that she had gone to her boss's house and that they slept together. I'm sure the flirting started earlier, but the texting and dirty-based messages started in May of 2017. Long story short, they got very close after May 2017 and were together physically 3 times. Once in a parking lot and twice at his apartment. This was her first job after taking time off to finish her degree and to have our twins. Her job is very male-dominated and she is either surrounded by men while at work or isolated in a vehicle. I think this dynamic helped to lead to what ultimately happened. I am a war veteran with undiagnosed PTSD and depression issues. The month that this all started with my wife, I lost my mother and my dog of 15 years. I became a total recluse. I from home 50% of the time and I am on the road for work the other 50% of the time and rarely left our home. We have a 25-year-old, my stepdaughter, and a set of boy-girl 5-year-old twins. My in-laws live with us in an in-law suite to help us take care of the kids and to assist them with their finances. I absolutely can't stand them, so I arranged my work hours to start work around 10 to 11 a.m. and I would stay up until 2 to 3 a.m. to have the house completely by myself. During this time, my wife had to wake up at 4 a.m. to head to work, which resulted in us rarely seeing each other. To make matters worse, this happened right after my wife had a major health scare and lost a lot her muscle mass and gained a bit of weight. In hindsight, I was severely depressed and needed my wife to help me get out of it. I now also realize that my wife was severely depressed and took the symptoms of my depression and PTSD to be signs that I no longer was in love with her. An example of this is that I would start work at 11 a.m. but not shower or do any personal hygiene until 6 or 7 at night. My wife would come home and I would give her a very unpassionate kiss, and she took it to mean that I didn't want her. I was just embarrassed that I hadn't handled any daily hygiene yet and I didn't want to be in her face. Before this discovery, I trusted my wife fully and I thought we were a model couple. I didn't recognize the signs that she was depressed, that she was cheating, and I didn't recognize that I was depressed. I have beat myself up a bit about being so trusting, but I have come to the conclusion that I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I trusted my wife as husbands are supposed to do. There are hordes more that I could add, but the above is the gist of it. Now here's the issue. Since my discovery of her affair and her subsequent admission, she has honestly done everything right. We've gone to counseling, she's talked about her issues, she's admitted her faults and accepted full responsibility of what happened. She understands that she should have talked to me about what was going on in her life instead of trying to feel better about herself and finding consolation in another man's arms. With all of that said, I am a man at the end of the day, and the thought of my beautiful wife betting another man and doing the things that she has admitted that she did with him are tearing me up. I'm willing to work on us and she is doing everything to help me trust her again and feel in love with her again, but I really don't know how to recover from the betrayal. I don't know how to get the images out of my head. I don't know how to move forward without animosity. I don't know how to not think about her and him when I see her bent over getting something out of the stove, etc. If anyone needs more info in order to have a better idea of the whole situation, I am ready to share. Through counseling, she has admitted that she thought the relationship was already over. She thought I was no longer in love with her and that I wanted a divorce. She has admitted in counseling that she took the coward's way out and had an affair. Part of her reasoning was to help shield herself from the hurt and pain of me wanting to leave. I never wanted to leave. I have always loved her. Her father committed suicide after not claiming her for 18 years, and her stepfather left them and was abusive. Prior to my relationship with her was also bad while in the army, and her relationship that she was in prior to me was an emotional and physically abusive one. She has said that she wants us to last and that her intention is to repair our marriage. I believe her and that's what I want too, but I have no clue how to let her back in. So, there's the rub. Part of me says that it could happen again and part of me thinks that she learned her lesson. And as far as 3 times or not, I know she's lying about that. No one ever tells the truth. She says 3, so I'm putting it at 6. In a counseling session, one of the things mentioned was that what she said to him wasn't the truth because she wanted him to like her, and what she is telling me isn't 100% the truth. 3, 6, 10, it doesn't really matter. They slept together. And yes, she quit her job. Kind of. She went to work for 1 day after D-Day, then she took 2 weeks off. The following week I had to go to Hawaii for a work trip for 2 weeks and she flew out with me. When we returned, she got promoted, transferred to another site, and she hasn't been back to the old site since. Another interesting part of this is that she has admitted to being the instigator and the one who pushed for things to progress. She also admitted to using him to get her promotion. Coincidentally, I'm not allowed at her old job. The day after I found out that she was having an affair, but before I knew they were sleeping together, I went to their work to talk to him. Lucky for him, maybe for me because I still have a clean record with no assault charges, he arrived to work late that day. She has admitted that she handled it wrong. She was just explaining her frame of mind at the time. When she tells me how she wishes she had handled it, I believe her. I just can't for the life of me understand how she would be willing to screw me over so bad. I am the one person in her life, to include her parents, who has never left or abandoned her and who has always been a supporter of her. As far as the HR thing, I did contact HR, but the OM kept texts and messages between them. He was definitely inappropriate, but my wife was the instigator. My first thought after deciding not to beat his ass was to get him fired. But my wife actually landed a very lucrative position, nearly doubling her pay, and I didn't want there to be any blowback on her. It pisses me off that he seems to be getting off scot-free though. She only worked there one more day after I discovered it all. And the boss is 2 times divorced. Even after all of this time, I still feel like I should confront him though. There should be consequences. While he is not the one that broke vows to me, he definitely knew she was married. My comment: you answered what she wants, but you need to be upfront with what you really want and whether you think you can ever get past this. When a wife has an affair, you need to redirect your thinking and advocate for yourself and not for her, because you are no longer a team, at least not before all the damage is repaired. So again, can you sit down and decide your life direction? If you had to pick a partner knowing what you now know about her, would she be your ideal mate? Is a cheating woman that lies to you when caught, used bonding with her boss to get a promotion, and that has a history of abuse in her past, the best woman you think you can get? Are you satisfied with someone like that? I'm not judging you here, just questioning your choices so that you understand what you are potentially signing on for. If the answer to those questions is yes and you still want to be married to her, then go for it. But if the answers are no, then you'll never be able to move past her infidelity, because every time you look at her, you'll be letting yourself down and knowing that you settled for less than you should have. She needs to quit the job. Transfer isn't good enough. For all you know, they're still communicating via company email and banging on lunch breaks. She needs to go 100% no contact with this guy, which means shutting down any possible avenues for even casual, unplanned contact. Can't really do that for as long as they're working for the same company. Also, a 6-month affair. You can bet there was bonding at least once a week, way more than 3 or 6 times. Also, if the guy is married or has a girlfriend, expose the affair. OP responds: the one thing I can't guarantee is that they are using company email and phones to communicate. As far as the more than 3 or 6 times, it honestly doesn't matter. Bonding even one time with someone that you aren't married to is wrong. So 3, 6, 10, 100, it's all the same to me. But with that being said, I got access to her emails and texts and was able to confirm the first time they were together. It was September 1st, 2017. She left early for work that day and they were together in a parking lot. The second time was October 3rd, 2017. I was out of town on a work trip and she said she had to work late on that day. And the third time was October 20th, 2017, and that's when she left our house during an argument and spent the night with him. I'm sure that September 1st, 2017 was the first time, and I know that they kissed first on August 25th, 2017, and they pretty much made out every morning until D-Day. If there were times in between those dates that I don't know about, then that's fine. At this point, it really doesn't change anything. The 2 sites are 40 miles apart. She has her Google and Apple GPS locations shared with me, and I can see where her car is at all times with Tracker. I also do pop-up lunch and just to say hi visits. In the Army, the subordinate doesn't get in trouble for a physical-based relationship. But I've only ever been in government jobs. I wasn't sure how corporate America worked. I didn't want this tarnishing her at her new site. I figured that no matter how this all turned out, I would be better off as she makes more money. Whether we are together or divorced, my life is better with her making more money. No, he isn't married, nor was he dating. He is 2 times divorced and was dating when he and my wife first started texting, but they broke up and he got his own apartment in October. He was single as of October, and neither she nor I have spoken to him since. I think she is lying about the number of times only because in my personal counseling sessions, my counselor said to be wary of her downplaying details. The facts, which she didn't know I had, texts and Facebook conversations, confirm that they have only been together 3 times. She admitted to being with him 3 times without me telling her what I had. She has also answered all questions that I had. She didn't confess to everything initially. My thought is that it's because her affair wasn't ended because she had an epiphany. It was ended because I saw signs and then started snooping once the signs got to be too much. I'd say it was about 45 days after the initial D-Day that we sat down after a counseling session and she laid everything out over the course of a 2-hour conversation. Then after that we talked another 2 hours or so with me just asking questions. She is far from forgiven. I say 6 months because I reviewed her texts and messages and they became physical in nature in May of 2017. Their first encounter on September 1st was just X, both of them. On their next 2 encounters they did every dang thing under the sun. I asked about it all and she talked about it all. I have phones and text records, Facebook Messenger records, GPS records, and Fitbit sleep and activity records. Believe it or not, the Fitbit data proved to be the most useful. They never ate out, but they did eat lunch together at work. They never went to any hotels, and she did send him lingerie pictures, but it was lingerie that I had bought her. I have since disposed of those items. Part of what surprised me about it all is that not only did she not deny me bonding, but it increased. In the beginning anyway. From May to September the frequency that we were together increased or was the same, 1 to 2 times a week. In September she started back giving me blowjobs and had some new tricks and was way more into than I had remembered in a while. They never met up during work hours. The first time they met up was before work. She left our house an hour and 15 minutes early that day. The second time was after work. She claimed that she had to work late and I never questioned it. I was also out of town for work this time. The third time was not during work either and she did not go to work the next day. They were playing kissy face in the morning at work but never any bonding. I have Fitbit data and other reliable ways of confirming this. I'm a network engineer by trade and coincidentally one of the IT guys at her new job used to go to school with me. She recently got a new work computer and through some means that I will not disclose here I was able to get her old computer tower. She used it from the day she started her new job until mid-Feb. With what I have been able to see on her computer I am relatively assured that she isn't in contact with the OM. There was one contact with him on December 28th that she told me about already that I found on her computer. An employee from her old site, where OM runs, needed a transfer to her site that she now runs, and she had to send the request to him. As far as everything else goes, we went having separate checking accounts to a joint account, kind of, and I have full access to all of her credit cards and finances. I also have full access to her cell phone records and passwords. The only thing I don't have is her work phone. I'm about as positive as anyone can be that she has broken it off and that she is respecting our no-contact agreement. As far as my PTSD, I am now going to therapy regularly and I understand better what it is going on in my head. I'm having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. I'm learning healthier ways to deal with my PTSD triggers and I'm allowing my wife to help me cope instead of shutting her out. In addition to the PTSD counseling, we are doing marriage counseling together and she is doing individual counseling on her own. Looking back, I realize I was probably horrible to live with. I was never abusive to her or our kids, but I was definitely abusive to myself. The realization of how crappy I was is not something that she is putting on me. It's just me seeing what depression and PTSD did to me. The flip side of that is that she was a crappy person too for giving up on me during that time. She has acknowledged that and is working to be a better support system for me. At the end of the day, I'm really not worried about her current honesty or about what happened with her affair. I have relative assurance that she has put it all out there and I have as much assuredness as anyone could have in this sort of situation that she is now telling the truth. The one thing that I don't know is how to forgive and look past the discretion. How to forgive what I once said was an absolute deal breaker. How to allow someone back in that hurt me so badly when I needed her the most. I'm grappling with the consequences part. If it is my goal to have a lasting partnership with someone, then aiming to punish them shouldn't be my mindset. With that said, I do feel like there should be a consequence to her actions. I'm not sure losing my trust and having to relinquish some of her individual privacy is enough. It might be though. The hysterical bonding thing was crazy to me. I could not understand how I could be so enraged with someone and want them so badly at the same time. Us humans are crazy creatures. If I am to be honest about it, she really is doing everything within her power to help me heal, to help us become better mates, and to help me feel safe within the marriage. The changing of jobs is a non-starter for me. If she still worked with the OM, then it would be a different story. I am content with her running a site that is geographically separated from the site that he runs by 40 or so miles. As far as the hall pass, that's not what I want either. If I feel the need to sleep with someone else, then I'll end my marriage first. There was an almost that happened in Hawaii right after the initial disclosure. I met someone on a dating app and met up with them with the intention of sleeping with them and letting my wife find out. Wife was in Hawaii with me at the time. I was there for work. I met the other lady and we wound up hanging out on the beach and talking for hours. Her ex-husband was a liar and a cheater and we wound up just talking and giving each other advice. I showed my wife the initial flirty texts and withheld the parts that showed that nothing happened and that we just talked. After a couple days I felt that I had done enough damage and I showed her everything and told her what actually happened when we met up. As a red-blooded male, it's hard to imagine that I met up with a rather attractive woman in Hawaii, hung out on the beach for hours, and that we didn't bond together. It's just not what I wanted. I wanted my wife. The promotion wasn't the cause of the affair. It was a byproduct of it. Not making excuses for her, but from my position she was attracted to the OM and she wanted to feel validated, needed, wanted, etc. She messed up and she should have reached out to me for those things, but in her mind, erroneously, I no longer wanted her. She is into work and values her health and fitness. The month prior she had a health incident that caused her to lose a lot of muscle mass and to simultaneously gain a lot of weight. To me it seems like she wanted validation, and the things that he was saying to her must have provided it to her. Again, not making excuses for her and not saying it's okay. This is stuff that came out during counseling. Well, yes, she had crappy character, but what exploit of her crappy character was in use here to allow her to betray her spouse? We both took STD tests immediately after discovery, and I'm 100% positive our kids are mine. Not because of anything she has said or done, but there are other circumstances at play that allow me to have 100% certainty. I have her old work computer with full access to her work Outlook. I have her work VPN information and can access her work email at any time. I don't have her company phone access, but that would be the case no matter where she worked. The only other thing I don't have is access to her other video conferencing apps. That's something I'm willing to forego. As far as driving to the site to meet, it really wouldn't matter where she worked. If he wanted to meet up at lunch, it wouldn't matter where she worked. The thing about it is, with the distance and traffic, there is very little chance that he could meet up with her at lunch without taking half the day off. But again, it doesn't matter where she worked. I'm about as confident as anyone can be in this situation that the affair is over and that she isn't continuing to communicate with him. Her current job and their continued communication, or lack thereof, isn't my issue. She did it, she had the affair. It's over and done. After being confronted, she didn't have to tell the truth. She told the truth without knowing what I knew. With daytime traffic, it's 1 hour 20 minutes between sites. We talk every day during her lunch. I have tracker on her car to see her car's location. I have her location sharing turned on for her phone and her iPad. I have cameras at my front door and sides of my house. While I don't have a VAR, just ordered one. I did leave an old iPhone under the back seat of her car for a week or so with a recording app turned on. I couldn't do this on her way from work, but I would set it up in the morning on her way to work. The only thing I heard was music or her talking to me. Before D-Day, they talked to each other all the time when she was at home, either via text, FB Messenger, or phone conversations. I would work in our home office until the early hours of the morning, so I just never saw it. The amount of time that we were around each other daily could be measured in minutes. We are around each other all the time when she's at home now. We work out together, we shop together, we go to our kids' activities together. On top of that, I have gathered enough proof to catch her telling the truth enough to believe with near certainty that the affair is over. I am confident that the affair is over. No contact is being enforced. She changes jobs. Same company, different position, different site. She sent him a no-contact email and phone call. I monitor her communication. I called the OM myself, from his number that I found on her cell phone records, and told him to no longer speak to her. I told him that I had all of the evidence that I needed to go to HR, and that the only reason that I didn't go was because of me looking out for her career, but that if there was any further contact or communication, HR would be my next step. The guys are also in the Army Reserves, and I told him that I would take the adultery evidence to his command. They don't work together. The company isn't structured where people that run different sites have communication with one another. The only sort of communication that she could be having is the same sort of communication she could be having no matter where she worked. I got cheated on because I trusted her and she took advantage of it. I'm not stupid. If I thought there was a chance they would have contact with one another, she wouldn't still be working at her current job. I have this part of it handled. I don't know how else to say it. Not worried about the old boss. And not the affair didn't have anything to do with love for the other man. She was with him for numerous hours a day, their friendship gray. She liked the way he responded to her and it boosted her self-esteem. She messed up and took it to the next level. I'm sure she enjoyed the thrill of the affair and the affirmation that she still had it. She did it at the expense of me and our marriage without thinking about the consequences. She exhibited poor judgment, definitely. I don't believe her to be a serial cheater. The signs that she exhibited during this affair were never there before, and the amount of time that we were together before was, most likely, not enough to cultivate a relationship that could lead to cheating before. Again, this is her first job in a long while. She took time off to have our children and she took time off to finish school. Our agreement was that she wouldn't go back to work until our kids started kindergarten. As far as it is happening again, that's something that now is a possibility in my head. The goal, if I decide to stay and I convince myself that this is a forgivable offense, is to build an affair-proof marriage. That will take work on both of our parts. Her corporate work phone is not a desk phone. It's a company-owned cell phone used for management of her facility. When she leaves at night, she leaves it with her number 2 in command. Her take-home phone is subsidized by her work, but I have full access to it. Yes, a workplace exposure was done. At her previous site, I went to her work to confront him and to affirm my suspicions. He showed up to work late that day, luckily for both of us, but in the process of asking around for him, I let her co-workers know why I was there. I'm no more convinced that she would never do it again than I am that I would never cheat, or that anyone that is married would never cheat. Affair apparently happen in 80% of marriages, so being entirely convinced that it would never happen is silly. It's part of what didn't allow me to see the signs she was exhibiting in the first place. I have a motto that goes, anybody is capable of anything, on any given day. Meaning that anything and anyone is capable of anything. As far as what has she done? She offered to quit the job, she has gone to counseling, she had accepted full fault and been honest about what happened in her mindset. How she was delusional, and that the deeper she got entangled, the more she was able to convince herself it was okay because I didn't want her. She's being treated for her own depression. She shares her whereabouts with me. We talk more, we do more activities together. We work out together. She has willingly given up personal privacy. My intent is that if we stay together to not keep this up indefinitely due to the demoralizing nature of it and the possibility of causing resentment in the long term. More covert means of watching and confirming will be moved to in the future. She doesn't leave the room when talking on the phone. She freely has given me her passwords and access to all of her electronic devices. I'm sure there's more that I'm leaving out. There is no rug sweeping and I'm far from providing justification. There is absolutely zero justification to cheat. She betrayed me and our vows. She lied and betrayed me. She has fully accepted and confessed to her betrayal. She has attempted to make amends for her actions. The fact that there is even an affair section on the forum is proof positive that anyone is capable of anything on any given day. People make bad choices sometimes and apparently, they don't always live up to the moral standards that they prescribe for themselves. No one on here expected their partner to betray them. It was not the fault of anyone on here that was cheated on. Anyone on here that doesn't believe that it is possible that their partner could potentially cheat is delusional. They're also probably not doing things to prevent it because in their mind it is not a possibility. There's a huge difference in listening to what's going on in someone's head at the time of their poor decision-making and justifying their decision-making. I'm not rationalizing her affair. I am, however, rationalizing her state of mind. It doesn't matter how incorrect her feelings at the time were, they were still her thoughts and feelings at the time. She acted inappropriately. She lied. She betrayed. She has admitted to all. She didn't handle things the way she should have, and in hindsight she and I both wish she exercised better judgment. There is no justification for her actions. There is no valid reason to betray your vows. If you're not happy, you either try to fix things, or you divorce. Those are the two proper ways to handle things. She didn't do either. That ship has, however, sailed. She made poor choices, and the question now is what to do with the fallout of those poor choices. If anyone out there thinks that it's impossible for their spouse to have an affair, they are as delusional as I was when I thought it couldn't happen to me. My comment: she got caught 5 months ago. It's too short of a time period for her to have changed. Her former character matters, but her recent character is more important than her longer ago character. Her character changed, not completely, but enough to be so uncaring and negligent and willing to break her vows and lose her husband and stable family. You know the signs and her mode of operating, so you will see it quick if it ever happens again. Cheaters rarely break their patterns. You won't be too trusting next time to miss it or ignore it. There's no magic words or actions to fix this. It takes a couple years at least. It gets better, but for most people it never fully goes away. It takes time. You trusted her and now her actions made you reconsider and you no longer trust her. She must be trustworthy in word and deed, consistently, for a very long time. Trust is earned. She must continue earning it. This is the big picture. The little picture, what you need for that big picture, is up to you to determine and communicate it with her. I personally am not a fan of monitoring her behavior. I personally have an image of myself, a standard, that if I have to monitor my wife so she doesn't screw other guys, I'd rather just leave. If that's what she wants, let her go to it and I'm out. Again, you've seen what it looks like. They don't change, and you'll figure it out monitoring or not. I personally find the monitoring to be a huge hit to my self-esteem.